Today we wanted to make a video on safety in Mexico, particularly with driving, because we just got the really sad news that on Saturday night, a Canadian woman was killed near Queretaro as she was driving back to Canada from her home in Oaxaca.
What we know is that she decided to travel by car because she planned on coming back to Canada with her four dogs and her cat. And they stopped, it was late at night, and they decided to stop at a convenience store. They decided to stop there to get something when the thieves arrived with guns, and they shot both of them, her and the man who was accompanying her in her trip. Luckily, the man was only injured. However, she didn't survive. And also, unfortunately, the dogs that were traveling with her escaped.
And they were last seen near Zibata. And here's a picture of them on the screen. So if you happen to live in the Zibata area and see them, please contact this number here.
Yeah, they keep trying to find these dogs because they weren't street dogs. They had a family. They are not used to live in the street. They could just grab one of the dogs and a cat. However, the three of them still missing. So as he said, if you live in that area and you've seen them, please let this person know, hoping that they can basically find the right person so they can be located again in a home that can love them.
And we want to give our condolences to the friends and family. I can't imagine how hard of a time you're going through, and we'll say a prayer for you tonight. And the point of this video isn't to create panic or to try to make you scared. It's just to give you some tips for when you're traveling in Mexico so you can make sure that you stay safe.
Hoping that also sharing this information and all these advices can help people to have a safer and better and more enjoyable trip here to Mexico.
And I think it's also worth mentioning that bad stuff can and does happen anywhere. So we don't want to paint Mexico with a really broad brush.
And I think especially if you live outside of Mexico, there's a misconception that most of the things related with not safety stuff or kidnap, robbery, etc., it's related to cartel and drugs. However, it's not that way. A high percentage of the events like kidnapping, murdering, etc. are actually not related with it at all.
Yeah, probably 90% or more of crimes on civilians are not related to narcotraficantes, but rather just bad people.
Yeah, and we are not saying that like the situation around drugs and narcotráfico aren't harder or like more intense nowadays, because it's a real fact that basically there are like more fights and murderers and shots and all that stuff related to narco, yet it has increased a lot in the last few years. However, there are also many other factors that are doing that Mexico it's not as safe as it used to be in the past. There are a lot of people that don't have a job anymore, like as the way it is in the US, like the prices of products and basic products have increased a lot. Also, we have to consider the emotional and the mental health factor after COVID pandemic, knowing that obviously that impact in a very negative way in so many people that already might have some mental disorder with the increase of depression, anxiety, and many other mental illnesses. So once again, there are so many factors that affect and that can increase or decrease safety in Mexico. But nowadays, we want to talk about safety when you're going by car or in a road trip, because nowadays it's one of the topics that we hear about like most of the time that can make you like be in a hard position.
But before we talk about tips for your next Mexico road trip or the next time you're going from one city or to another or from one state to another, We want to give you a resource you can use. I've actually criticized this resource in the past, but as I've come to learn more about it and more about the country, I've come to learn that it's actually pretty accurate. Like, yes, it's very much a generalization, but that is the US State Department travel advisory for Mexico. It breaks the states in Mexico into 4 different categories. I have it here in front of me. One is the do not travel to states, then you have reconsider travel to, exercise increased caution, and then exercise normal precaution. And then it has a few states listed under each one of those. But overall, I think it's pretty accurate, and we'll link to this in the description so you can see the most recently updated one. But for example, the do not travel to states are Colima, Guerrero, Michoacan, Sinaloa, Tamaulipas, and Zacatecas.
And actually, talking about this, as he said, me being a Mexican and basically living here my whole life, I also think that this in general is very accurate, especially if it's your first time traveling to Mexico. Because if you're really like been living here, these states can be taken like not as a do not travel, but maybe we could, some of them, put them in a very different category. For example, it says that Michoacan and Sinaloa are states that you shouldn't travel. And we could say, in our experience, that there are some cities or towns in Michoacan or Sinaloa that you can visit and have a great time without being unsafe. One of the advices we can give you is that even if the place you want to visit it's at one of those do not travel states, one thing that helps a lot if it's a very touristic place, because if it's a very touristic place, the truth is that it's very possible that it's gonna be safer than it looks like.
And as an example of a place on this do not travel list that I would happily travel to is Sinaloa. Yes, it's true that on a per capita basis, there's a lot more murders in Sinaloa each year than a lot of other places. However, at the same time, most of those are from cartel on cartel activity. And I would be perfectly happy going to Mazatlan. I wouldn't have any concerns going there. We went there last year and we loved it and we would happily go back there. So this is a good general guideline, but there are exceptions.
And we're talking about our experience and the experience of people we know. But as he said, like if you go to Mazatlan, Sinaloa, we were perfectly fine, we were safe, we were walking through this touristic area. And if you haven't seen the video, go and check it out because we have a video that we made at Mazatlan. But anyway, I wouldn't be sure, or I can't say that I would be feeling as safe as I was feeling in Mazatlan going to another town or city in Sinaloa. Mm-hmm. We don't know.
Yeah.
Again, Mazatlan was fine for us, and we never went out of the touristic area.
Yeah.
Again, it's very important to respect those limits and do not visit neighborhoods or places that are not safe and population already know it. So always try to ask people that live there where you should or you shouldn't go.
And as another example, the state of Guerrero is on the do not travel to list. And a close friend of ours is from there, and she says she will absolutely not go to where she's from because it's way too freaking dangerous. But at the same time, there are other places in Guerrero that I would travel to. I would go to Iztapa. I would go to Tasco. So there are cities even on these do not travel to states.
Another way that it's important to say, it's like, as he mentioned, Ixtapa. It's one of the places or touristic areas that are more enjoyable about Guerrero. However, it also depends which road you use to arrive.
Oh, I was thinking flying.
No, yeah, obviously flying, but we're mentioning the part of going by car.
Yeah.
In this case. So if you're going by car, well, try to use the safest roads that most of the time are mentioned or are the ones that are marked by Google. So do not try on improving and becoming brave when it's about like traveling by car, because you can get a very bad surprise. But anyway, if you go to Michoacan, we feel perfectly safe going to Morelia or another touristic like magic town like Pátzcuaro. It's really enjoyable. We will also go to Angangueo, the place of the monarch butterfly, or also we can go to this place that where we got the ornaments for the Christmas tree. I forgot the name.
Tlapujawa.
Tlalpujawa. So again, Michoacan, it's one of the states I know the most. It's a do not travel option. However, I would say you can travel, but it depends where, basically.
And now let's talk about some safety measures for your next road trip. I think the single best piece of advice we can give you is to travel during the day. Bad stuff is so much more likely to happen at night than during the day. Yes, it can still happen during the day, but it's way less likely. And this is all about reducing your risk.
And if you can't do anything, like if you can't avoid traveling during the night, first of all, check that you have gasoline to be able to arrive to your destination without any stop. Be sure that you have everything that you need with you: food, beverages, something that it's gonna keep you awake during your whole road. Check your car, check the tires, so you won't have to stop basically anywhere.
And that's the point. Like, that's why you want to have a full gas tank, so you do not have to stop. Like, if you absolutely must drive at night, do not stop anywhere, because if you do, again, you're increasing your risk a lot. But when it comes to driving at night, I do think it's perfectly fine for us, for example, to drive all over our city at night. We do it all the time. But it's a place we know it's generally pretty safe here. But there's a big difference between driving within a city at night and driving long distances at night to another city or to another state.
Exactly, and that's basically because it depends, and something that determines most of the time safety, it's how crowded or lonely the place is. So as he said, here in Querétaro, we know exactly which are the like dangerous neighborhoods, and obviously we don't even go there during the day. Or like, again, the problem is that when you are traveling by car, especially like a road trip, the possibility that it's gonna be like the National Guard or the police taking care of the road, it's like very low. Many of them, they just work during the day, unless it's a very, very dangerous road. So they're gonna possibly be there, but they might not be able to help you, because obviously the thieves and the bad people already know where most of the police and Guardia Nacional like people are already like looking at all the time.
Okay, and now let's talk about the main ways that somebody may try to rob you or kidnap you or do something else bad to you while you're traveling on the road.
The first thing that nowadays, unfortunately, it's used to rob you or try to kidnap if you're going in a road trip, it's putting huge rocks in the middle of the roads. So again, they say that if you are going in a road trip and you see a huge rock, obviously they do this to make you stop, because all the time they are hidden, trying to basically in a couple of minutes put the gun over your head and try to steal your stuff. But in this case, they say that if you see a rock in the middle of the road, first do not stop and try to take the rock out of the road. It's always better to turn back and go back, like whenever you're coming from, especially if the road is completely closed. If there's a way where you can avoid the rock, like even going out of the the road,
Just go around.
Just go around. But it's if the road is completely closed, do not try it. Do not stop. Do not try to take that out of the way. Just go back to your destination and plan on your trip another day. Because again, if you stop, the possibility of getting robbed or kidnapped, it's really, really high. Especially because it's well known that unfortunately, people that right now are robbing in the roads have very, very large guns and it's not just something like a knife as it used to be. Right now they really have weapons and guns, so you really don't wanna face that situation.
So that's a situation where they're putting something in the road, usually rocks, but it could be something else. It could be a big tree branch or something to get you to stop. And then you get out of your car, and that's when they rob you. They were hiding, then they rob you. Another tactic they've been using is that they park their car on the side of the road with their hood up. They pretend that they're trying to figure out what's wrong, or they pretend that they're trying to fix it. Now, I know people's cars do actually break down, and there is a decent chance that it's actually somebody's car actually broken down there. However, this is another tactic that thieves use to steal from you, or to steal your car, or to kidnap you. They pretend like their car is broken down, waiting for a good Samaritan to help them, and then they rob you or kidnap you or something when you stop. So unfortunately, because of these thieves, it's actually not safe to stop and help somebody.
Yeah, and it's hard, and it has happened to us because once we were driving, we were going somewhere and we saw somebody that was pushing his car with another guy, and he wanted to stop, but it was a neighborhood that it's not one of the safest here in the city. And like my best friend and I told him, like, please do not stop, because the possibility that they are going to try to rob us is really, really high. Yeah.
Sorry, and you both were so quick about it. You were both were like immediately, no, 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 don't stop, don't stop. Keep going, keep going.
And this is something that you gain with experience, like knowing when to stop or do not stop. But again, if you are new here living in Mexico, and even if you are Mexican, again, sometimes it's really hard to know if they are like for real having a hard time because of her car having some kind of problem, or if they're trying to rob you. So in this case, or in a general situation, if you haven't come to Mexico before, if it's your first time here, do not stop. As simple like that.
As you can see so far, almost everything bad that happens on the road, it starts with somebody getting you to stop. So sometimes what thieves do is they try to steal from people at places where you have to stop, like a toll booth. You stop there, you pay the toll, and then you keep going. But sometimes the bad guys take over the toll booth, or they'll pay the person who's working there to not show up, or they'll force that person to not show up that day somehow, and then they're the ones who are detaining you at the toll booth.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you our experience. Once I was going to Michoacan or someplace with my family, and we realized that actually the toll booth was closed. There was nobody there, but it was like a group of 20 people, including women, kids, and men, that were with their faces all covered, and they had huge pieces of wood. And we were passing by the toll booth, and a woman asked very politely, because they are not rude, they were really polite, my father something like, "Oh, hello, good morning. We are asking for a cooperation of 50 or 20, I don't remember, 50 or 20 pesos. Could you please help us?" And my father, obviously, us knew that these people were like not good people. And my father at first refused to give them the money. And my mom was like, "Please do not do this to us. I know it's hard to give our money, especially when you know that these people had bad intention. However, our life, it's more important." So basically my father gave the cash or whatever they were asking at, and they were like, "Okay, thank you so much for your help. You're probably gonna be stopped once again later in your like road trip. However, show them this piece of paper so they will know that you already cooperate." So basically we kept going. Obviously, like we were super scared because like seeing like 20 people surrounding us with those huge pieces of wood and everything, not knowing what was going on. We were going very slowly, and then we heard a huge crash We didn't know what was going on, and when we turned around, we noticed that actually the person that was behind us didn't wanted to pay those 50 pesos. And as soon as he said no, those 20 people with the pieces of wood went to start like crashing the car. And
Jeez.
obviously it was so scary because I can't imagine myself being inside of my car and being how these 20 people over your car like basically destroying it, and it was so scary. So again, another tip that we can give you that we forgot before is that if you are going in a road trip, don't forget to like have with you a little bit of cash, like some like small bills, 50 pesos, 20 pesos, or even some coins.
And also, in addition to that, enough to cover any tolls that you might have to pay on your way, because a lot of the toll roads are cash only too.
Yeah, another way that people are using nowadays to rob you or kidnap you is actually dressing like a police, like not them, but their cars. Unfortunately, there was another event lately about a couple that was going to a wedding to Valquirico, which is one of the like nowadays common places to go, and it's like it's very lovely and everything. However, anyway, they were going, and this guy made a video where he says how they were going in the road and they saw a car that looked exactly like a police car with the red lights and everything. So they started like showing the red lights to them and asking them to like go to the side of the road and stop. And he accepted that it was not a good decision on stopping because he knew that he was not speeding. He was basically driving normal. So they stopped, and at the moment that they stopped, the guys from the police car went down and they noticed that they didn't have the uniforms, and they were like at that time that they knew that something bad was going to happen, and they kidnapped them for a few hours or something, and but also they robbed everything, asked for their credit cards, for the security numbers, etc. So in this case they say that yeah, unfortunately bad people nowadays it's dressing their cars as car police. But they say that first of all, if you know that you're not speeding, do not stop again under any circumstance, especially if you take a look at the car and you can notice that they are not using police uniforms, that most of the time they're using the vest, like the safety vest, and they have lots of logos everywhere showing that they are police members. So in this case, do not stop.
And regarding the fake police, Mai mentioned that if you're not speeding, don't stop. I don't think she's talking about like if you're in a city, but if you're on a highway going from like one city to another, and then a cop tries to stop you when you weren't speeding. And by the way, when you're driving on the highway in Mexico, there's a 20 kilometer per hour tolerance. So if the speed limit is 110 kilometers per hour, you can be going up to 130 and still be under the legal speed limit because of that 20 kilometer per hour tolerance. So if you're going under 130 on a 110 kilometer per hour highway, and then a cop tries to pull you over, maybe it's a good idea to not stop, because there's a pretty good chance that that is a fake police officer who's trying to rob you.
And talking about fake police stuff, unfortunately, another way that they are doing nowadays or that are using nowadays to rob and kidnap, it's using or putting some fake police checkpoints in so many of the roads that are considered as dangerous. For example, Guanajuato, Tlaxcala, etc. You can see some police checkpoints where basically they don't stop you unless you look suspicious. That if you are going alone, if you're driving a very fancy car, if you're speeding up, etc. But again, it's not common that if you're traveling with your wife or with your family, they're gonna stop us. That's actually not common. However, again, if you're going through the road and you see a checkpoint and they don't have uniforms and they are actually stopping a lot of cars, like in this case, try to do not get out of your car First of all, you probably have to stop, but do not go out of your car and ask them what do they want, and try to get as much information as possible to know that that's a real checkpoint. Again, when it's a real checkpoint, people that are there are going to have their uniforms, and they're going to have official vehicles like National Guards or police. Otherwise, it's really suspicious.
I've been through many checkpoints in my travels across Mexico, and it's usually one of two things. Number one, they just wave you through, or they don't say anything and then you just keep driving. Or two, they ask you to pull to the side. And this has happened with me many times, where they ask me to pull to the side, and then they usually ask a few questions. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? What do you do for work? These are very common questions at checkpoints. My mention, make sure they're wearing official looking uniforms. If they're not, there's a good chance it's actually a fake checkpoint, and the reason for them being there is to rob you.
And also, when it's an official checkpoint, you can see actually many cars stopped at the same time. It's not like they just stop you and then like again, if you see no cars stopping in that checkpoints, it's another way to think like, this is kind of weird, this is kind of suspicious, because most of the time, again, they just check everything actually it's so fast. They make that questions, check the car, and then let you go, sorry. But in this case, again, if that checkpoint it's lonely, it's really, really suspicious. And also, we have to say that actually all these kind of situations, no matter how stricted you are, following the safety measures that we have given you, bad things can happen anyway. So if for any circumstance you're having some kind of trouble with your car, if you are having a damaged wheel or something is going on, we're gonna leave you here the numbers that you can call to, especially to have some assistance during your trip.
Yeah, and one of those things is the Ángeles Verdes, and the number for them is 078. And this is actually for tourists who are driving through Mexico. So they typically know English. This is typically someone you're going to call if you're having any problem with your car, if you have a flat tire, if you need to get towed, if something else happens, if there's some emergency on the road. But if you're in physical danger or something like that, or somebody's trying to rob you, in that case, you would call 911.
Yeah, the number of 911 basically will be able to help you sending the police or sending an ambulance. It's possible, obviously, that when you're facing this kind of situation, you might not have your cell phone with you, especially if you get robbed. What you can do in this case is keep walking. Keep walking, trying to find the next
emergency phone booth.
The next emergency phone booth, or the next town, or even trying to find somebody. Sometimes when you're going again in road trips, there are some people working their lands.
And if you are faced with a situation where somebody is trying to rob you, number one thing you should do is try to get out of there, get out of the situation, whether you have to do a fast U-turn in the car or weave around somebody, or even if you have to hit their car to get by them. Like if they have a car stopped in the road, for example, and you have to smack their door off, floor it and get away from there if you can. And then if you can't get away, just give them what they're asking for. Now, I know this would be a very, very stressful situation, and you're never going to know how you're going to react until you're actually in that situation. But if you can have the presence of mind to not try to fight and just to give them what they're asking for.
No matter what, life goes first.
You can replace these things, but you can't replace your life. And if you just give them what they're asking for, there's a much better chance that you get out of there alive.
We really hope that with this video, you don't end having this, bitter taste in your mouth about coming to Mexico, especially if you already have a trip planned, coming here, or if you have considered on coming here, or also if you already live here, because we think, me as a Mexican and him now that he has been living here for some years, that we think that Mexico has a lot of great things to offer. Amazing food, amazing places to visit. It's a very rich country. And yeah, it is so sad to see and to know everything that has been happening lately, especially when it involves somebody else's life. And I would like to say that, yeah, this topic makes me feel a little bit emotional because I remember making road trips at night with my family about and around these roads that nowadays are considered as do not road trips to go. And it's really sad to know how safety here in Mexico has changed a lot. However, we can tell you that you can for sure come and have an awesome experience in the country without having your health and your safety compromised by any kind of reason. Just remember to use common sense after all. We hope that this tips and measure and us letting you know what things are going on nowadays help you to have a better and clearer idea about how things are nowadays. And obviously would like, if you would like us to talk more about other safety issues, or if we want us to let you know about other advices we can give you if you're going to a very specific area, we can do it as well. And anyway, we hope you enjoy it and let us know which other content you would like to watch.
See you. No, let me do that. See you. So weird.
See ya.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching. We'll come to you next time with a more upbeat, happier topic, and we will see you in the next one.